Welcome back to Beyond Global Waves, where we explore the wonderfully weird ways we humans navigate the world.
Hmm.
And today, get ready for some vertical enlightenment, because we're slunging into the often silent, sometimes awkward, always fascinating universe of elevator etiquette.
Elevators, yeah. These tiny shared spaces where, unspoken rules are pretty much the only language most of us dare to speak.
Right.
Think about it. You step into this metal box surrounded by strangers, all silently agreeing to, well, a whole lot of things. It's kind of a hilarious social contract playing out between floors.
Absolutely. And who hasn't felt that little twinge of, oh no, did I just commit an elevator sin as the doors glide shut?
Yeah.
Maybe it was humming a little too loudly or, that overzealous button press. Well, fear not, dear listener, because we're here to decode the secrets to a smooth and stress-free vertical voyage, and maybe even crack a smile or two along the way.
Our mission is simple, really, to make those elevator rides a little less, well, elevatory.
Less awkward.
Exactly. We'll explore the fundamental do's and don'ts that keep things running smoothly, and also peek at how these unwritten laws can do a little cultural jig depending on whether you're in your apartment building, your workplace, or, halfway across the globe.
Okay, let's dive right into the ground floor of this discussion then. Boarding and exiting. Seems straightforward, right? But there's actually a subtle choreography to it.
Indeed there is. Picture the elevator doors not as just an opening to be rushed, but more like a portal.
Yeah, okay.
The prime directive, #1 rule, let those on the inside get out first.
Please, Jen.
Don't be that person forming a human wall, blocking their escape, A little sidestep is all it takes. It's just logical kindness in a confined space.
Exactly. Imagine being stuck in there, finally seeing your floor approaching, only to be met with this surge of people trying to get in. It's just elevator rush hour chaos.
Right.
And once the exiting passengers have made their escape, and maybe resist the urge to stampede in, a breath or two of patience makes all the difference.
And once you are in, take a step or two towards the back or the sides.
Yes.
Don't just hover in the doorway like you're admiring the door mechanism. This creates room for others joining our little ascent or descent.
Makes sense.
And, a quick glance at whether it's going up or down can save you from an accidental scenic tour of the building.
Brilliant point. Now, let's tackle the eternal elevator quandary. Holding the door. Is it a gesture of goodwill or just a potential source of annoyance?
It's a delicate balance, isn't it? Generally, a brief hold for someone visibly hurrying towards the elevator, when it's not already packed to the gills, is often seen as a nice touch.
Okay.
Building those good elevator vibes, think of it as a tiny act of social lubrication.
But, and this is crucial, that brief hold has its limits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't keep everyone waiting while your friend down the hall is still, searching for their keys.
No.
On a busy elevator, holding for more than, say, 20 seconds, that can earn you some serious silent judgment.
Oh, definitely. And definitely don't try to squeeze into an already overflowing elevator and expect someone to play doorman for your dramatic entrance.
Right.
It puts the person holding the door in such an awkward spot. They risk the collective sigh of the packed cabin or, appearing impolite for not accommodating you. Neither is a win-win.
Right.
However, if you're the sole occupant, hold away. The only person you're inconveniencing is yourself, and that's your prerogative.
Fair enough. Okay, makes perfect sense. Now, onto the button panel, that innocent-looking interface that can actually be a hotbed of unspoken rules.
Precisely. Rule #1, it's not a musical instrument. Resist the urge to tap every single button just to watch them light up.
Yeah.
It's less festive for your fellow passengers and just prolongs everyone's journey unnecessarily.
Unless you're trying to recreate a disco light show, maybe give it a rest.
Right.
And if you can comfortably reach your button, be a good citizen and press it yourself. No need to delegate unless you absolutely have to.
Mm-hmm. However, if you find yourself in prime button-pressing position near the panel...
Consider yourself the temporary captain of this vertical vessel.
The captain.
Exactly. Be ready to field floor requests. You could even take the initiative and ask entering passengers, which floor? A small act of elevator efficiency.
That's helpful.
And if, heaven forbid, you accidentally hit the wrong button, just own up to it. A quick, oops, my mistake. It diffuses any potential silent suspicion, that sort of whodunit mood.
Wonderful. So we're inside. We've hopefully selected the correct floor. Now, how do we navigate the ride itself? This is where respecting that invisible force field personal space really matters.
Absolutely. Think of the elevator cabin as a temporary Very intimate shared space.
Very intimate sometimes.
Yeah. Key conversations brief and at a volume akin to a hushed chat in a library. Stick to neutral, pleasant subjects, the weather, maybe, or perhaps an amusing headline you saw. Save the detailed plot summaries for later.
Definitely no loud phone calls about your complicated relationship status. Got it.
Please no. And while close quarters can be unavoidable in a crowded elevator, be extra mindful of accidental bumps. A quick, sorry, can go a long way in maintaining the peace.
It really does. Also be a good steward of your stuff. Keep your bags, your backpacks, your belongings contained so they're not encroaching on anyone else's personal bubble.
Good.
And for the sake of everyone's nose, maybe refrain from eating pungent foods or applying strong fragrances mid-ride. Your delicious garlic knots might be someone else's olfactory nightmare.
Oh, absolutely. Loud gossip or sharing confidential information?
Yeah.
Definitely not elevator material.
Not the place.
Agreed. And let's just address the elephant in the, elevator. Try your absolute best to avoid any, shall we say, bodily emissions.
Yes.
If a burp sneaks up on you, a discreet cover-up is appreciated.
Yeah.
And definitely cover any coughs or sneezes. Basic hygiene, right?
Absolutely. And facing the doors is generally the universally accepted default position, or, facing the majority of people in those fancy elevators with doors on both sides. And try to minimize any unnecessary fidgeting or dramatic swaying during the ascent or descent. Keep it steady.
Keep it cool.
And a crucial reminder, those big red emergency buttons, they are for genuine emergencies only.
Not for a quick stop.
Not for a brief pause to admire the view or finish a text. No. Finally, a little empathy goes a long way. Don't be that person who repeatedly jabs the close button when someone is clearly rushing towards the elevator.
The dreaded button masher.
Yeah, give them a chance.
Okay, our destination is in sight. The doors are about to open. What's the proper exit strategy?
Swift and decisive. Exit the elevator promptly and efficiently. Make way for those waiting. No lingering in the doorway for a final thought or a last-second chat.
Get out. Got it. Right then. Now, this whole elevator etiquette dance we've been describing, it gets a little more, shall we say, spicy when we consider different cultures around the world.
This is where it gets truly fascinating. Simple greetings, for instance, can vary quite a bit. Yeah. In France, a polite bonjour upon entering and maybe bonne journée upon exiting is a common courtesy.
Okay.
Contrast that with Japan and South Korea, where a more minimalist approach, often complete silence, is the norm.
Wow. Fascinating. So skip the enthusiastic good morning, everyone, in a Tokyo elevator.
Probably best, yeah.
What about the volume of conversation? Does that change too?
Again, it's culturally dependent. While a bit of quiet chatter might be acceptable in the USA, Canada, or the UK, especially if you know your fellow passengers, and maybe even more so in places like Brazil and Spain, maintaining a peaceful silence is often preferred in Japan and South Korea.
Good to keep in mind. And that personal space we were just discussing,
Yeah.
does that invisible bubble inflate or deflate depending on where you are?
Oh, absolutely. What feels like a comfortable distance in one culture might feel too close or too distant in another. For example, in Brazil and Spain, a closer proximity during a brief elevator ride might not raise any eyebrows at all. The key is really to be observant of nonverbal cues and just adjust your own spacing accordingly. Be aware.
Makes sense. Read the room,
Yeah.
or the elevator, as it were. You mentioned Japan again. Any other unique elevator customs there?
Yes. There's the subtle concept of the elevator captain. Often, the person standing closest to the button panel will implicitly take on the role of pressing the buttons for everyone else. It's an unspoken act of helpfulness, really.
Oh, like a designated button concierge. I like it. Very efficient. What about the art of waiting? How we line up?
Queuing, yeah. That orderly line we often see is particularly important in India. It's seen as a sign of respect for others and just a way to maintain order when things get busy.
Right. Now, let's briefly touch on how our behavior might shift in different settings, like, say, our workplaces versus our homes. Does it change?
Definitely. In a professional environment, maintaining a generally quiet and respectful demeanor in the elevator is usually the best approach.
More formal.
Yeah, a bit more formal. There might also be an unspoken understanding of who enters and exits first, sometimes with a subtle deference to superiors, depending on the workplace culture.
Okay. And what about in our own apartment buildings? Do the elevator dynamics change when you actually recognize your neighbors?
Familiarity definitely plays a role there. In some residential buildings, a simple nod or quick hello to a neighbor is common, totally normal.
Mm.
In others, especially in larger, maybe more anonymous buildings, the silent treatment might still prevail. It really depends on the local social norms within that specific community.
So you kind of feel it out.
You do.
Yeah.
And if you're visiting someone, observing your host's interactions in the elevator is always a good guide. Follow their lead.
Good tip. Well, this has been quite the upward and downward journey into the subtle art of elevator etiquette. It's amazing how much unspoken agreement goes into these brief vertical voyages.
It truly is. By understanding and, practicing these often unspoken rules, and by being mindful of those cultural variations we talked about, we can all contribute to a slightly smoother, and perhaps even a slightly more pleasant shared experience in that little box between floors.
So, for our final stop today, dear listener, how might simply being a little more aware of these subtle elevator dynamics change your next ride? Will you perhaps notice the unspoken interactions a little more? Maybe even adjust your own behavior in a way that brings a tiny bit more harmony to that shared space.
Something to think about.
We encourage you to observe and ponder these nuances the next time you find yourself in that vertical transit lounge. Until our next cultural deep dive on Beyond Global Waves.